What's going on, guys? It's the AlteredEdge coming to you with a brand new video on the One Piece card game. Now, in this video, I'm featuring a deck list of my favorite leader, Blue Doflamingo. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what this leader does, or you're just brand new to the game, I'm going to break it down for you. So, with 2 Dawn under him, when attacking, you can rest a 3rd Dawn to reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a 7 Warlords of the Sea character with a cost of 4 or less, you can play that card rested. Now, the whole gimmick or shtick with this deck is honestly, whatever you play from your deck, you protect with the cards from your hand. So think of things from your deck as extra, as the main copies, and anything in your hand is an extra copy to protect it. I like to think of it as like, if I have a Boa Hancock in my hand, I would love to see one from my deck, and I feel really comfortable protecting it with the copy from my hand. Because when people out the cards that are on your board that you play from deck, they usually have to out them with stuff they play from their hand, therefore giving you an innate card advantage as you progress through the game, and you want to essentially rinse and repeat that process. Maintaining your hand advantage, not being too greedy, but you know, that happy equivalent of whatever you need in the time being. So with that being said, let's head down to the the playmat, and I'll show you what I got in the list here. So obviously we have the Blue Doflamingo leader, and then a lot of the decks for Doflamingo are pretty much standard at this point. For like the core, you're gonna want 4 Perona on play, look at top 5 and stack. That's essential for what this deck likes to do. And then a new addition for OP2, I run 2 copies of the 1-drop Don Quixote Doflamingo. On play, you get to look at top 3, so he acts as like as if you're running 6 Peronas as opposed to 4. And then when attacking Don X1, you can actually bottom deck a card with a cost of 1 or less. So he's actually pretty good into certain red matchups. And then just to help with more consistency moving forward, I have 2 copies of the 1-drop Trafalgar Law. This is a card I go back and forth with of how many I like to run, but right now 2 has felt good. And then moving forward into the only 2 cost in the deck is 4 copies of Alvida. Just a 2k counter. Standard, you almost are never going to play her. After that, the only 3 cost in the deck is the blocker Doflamingo. It's pretty self-explanatory. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, stack them in any order, or place them on the bottom, and he's also a blocker. This is probably one of the best cards in the deck, just because he's a 3x4 blocker. You're going to play him a lot. It always feels good to play him, and there are a lot of games where you end up attacking with him, so he kind of burns that innate value, and people still have to swing into him because they have to honor the value there. Next, another new card from OPO2, 4 copies of the 4x6 Gecko Moria. I see some people play 3, some people play 4, some people play 2. Personally, I have a lot of Whitebeard players at my locals. I run 4. If I can establish a bunch of 4x6s, I usually can win that game. Next up, bread and butter for the Doflamingo deck. We have 4 of Boa Hancock herself. Probably one of the best blockers in the game right now, next to Borsalino. Don X1, when attacking or on block, you can draw 1 card if you have 5 or less cards in your hand, and it's a blocker, 4x5, you can play up the top. Solid. If you can establish or get a couple of these to stick in a game, you're probably going to win, because the value you'll gain from her is massive. You'll out-resource your opponent every time. It's also why she dies almost in every game. Almost a guaranteed target to blow up. Now the only controversial card, Doflamingo. I run 4 of the event promo Junbei. The card's good. A lot of people are like, oh, do you need it? Do you not need it? If you can get it, play it. It's that simple. If you can't, run other more traditional options for the deck, which I can break down in a later video. But right now, this card is amazing. There are so many, like, against black, he's huge. Against red, he's huge. Against red-green law, he's huge. I'm not going to say that, like, he solo wins you the match, but he punishes your opponent. And again, it's the whole concept of, if you play him from the top of your deck and you don't affect your hand, the count of cards in your hand, and your opponent has to play a card from their hand to get rid of it, and then he also outs a card, by the math, you gain the card advantage, which is all the game's about. Next up on the list is another pretty standard option. 4 2K counter Mihawk. Dawn, when attacking Dawn X2, you can draw 2, trash 2. Rarely ever use it. Pretty much always just use them as a 2k counter. After that, it's 4 Gecko Moria, 4x5. Fantastic card. On play, add 1/7 Warlords or Thriller Board card from trash to hand that costs 4 or less. You know, a lot of times what people do is they pitch this for a counter, play this off top, and then get their Mihawk back. So it's kind of like you get to use the same 2k counter twice, which is really good. This is my personal preference for the deck. I like 3 Kuma. I don't know. I got a love-hate relationship with this card. He's fantastic. Blocker, 4x5, 7 Warlord. On KO, play a Pacifista that costs 4 or less from your hand. It's really good. I'm a big proprietor of, I like having cards on the board that I can dictate what they're doing, or they have more of an immediate impact, similar to like Jinbei, towards like if he's KO'd, he gets rid of something. Forces my opponent to play a little awkward. But when you're going into black, if you can establish Kumas and Jinbei and have the Pacifista loaded, you should be okay. Next, I'm only running 2 Pacifista. I usually keep my Pacifista count 1 under when I'm running for my Kumas. So if I'm running 3, I'm running 2. The only exception is sometimes I'll do really heavy builds. I had a big event at my locals where I knew there was going to be a ton of Whitebeard, so I was like, screw it. I want 4 4x6 Pacifista, and I want 4 Kuma, and I want 4 4x6 Gecko Moria, because I want to be able to pressure that out, get this established, and I basically want my board to always be 4x6s. And I didn't lose a match to Whitebeard in that tournament, which I don't really struggle against Whitebeard with blue. You have a really strong matchup against it, tempo-wise, and having these cheap 4x6s is a big reason for that. Next, a new addition, one of the 7 cost Doflamingos back in the deck. On play, you can bounce a 7 cost or less back to the hand. It's just there as a tempo card, really. If you need it on 7, he's fantastic. If you want to hold your Mihawk for 10 Dawn and play this on 9, it still gives you 2 Dawn to play with. So that's really my logic there. If I wasn't running the 1 of him, I would run 4 of the next card instead of 3, which is the 9x9 Dracula Mihawk. He's the best card in blue. Bottom deck, a 7 cost or less on play. My only downside to this card right now is he's really strong, but against some matchups, he's really hard to establish and stick, especially late. So it's kind of like if you miss your window of opportunity to get him established, and you kind of miss it completely, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you have to be pretty smart, which is a big reason why I added that 7 drop Doflamingo back in. So I have a little bit more flexibility, or I can use the 7 drop to clear the way for the 9. Newest addition to the deck, I have 2 Gum Gum Rain. A big problem I've been running into this deck is countering, and being able to do it effectively and having cards that aren't doing anything. I mentioned earlier that the 9-drop Mihawk can effectively be useless if you against certain matchups, or if you hold him too long. This card acts as like a correction for that, because there are definitely times where it's like if you open, I'll just give you a cheap example. So let's say late game, so each player has 10 Dawn. You have the 1-drop Doflamingo in your hand, who does not have a counter, and you have this card. That 1-drop Doflamingo acts as a free pitch for this. Anything that doesn't have counter in the deck is a free pitch for this card. And I mean anything that doesn't have a counter, whether it's your other event cards that do cost Dawn, or it's one of your big cards that don't have counter. Any of that is a great card to pitch for this, and that 0 for 3 is fantastic. It's always live, and then being able to return a card that costs 2 or less to the owner's hand on trigger will come up and can be huge. I mean, you're going to hit almost every card in Zoro with that, and you can hit all the blockers. So being able to, bounce a blocker late, do something like that, it comes up, could be big. So that's why I'm running this now. If you are like, no, Gum Gum Rain is trash, don't want to run it, extra 2k counter, card. There's tons of them that you can run for blue now with the Impel Down stuff or Baroque Works Bonclays. So just run like 2 of those and just put 2 extra 2k counters in your deck. Probably would be my honest suggestion. 1 Brick Fist. This is probably my favorite event card in blue right now. I just don't have the space, I think, to run more than this, and it was kind of hard to justify even the 1. But I'm not running Teach for the reason of I don't think Teach is very good right now because of the 3 costs or less. But because this hits a 4, I've had a lot of matchups into Black or Whitebeard where having this card in my hand has been a huge difference maker for the tempo of the game. Being able to like get rid of a Marco off the board, or like against Whitebeard, honestly the better play that I've done is they play the 4x6 guy, and then the next turn I Brick Fist them, which sets them back a turn, which is huge because they kind of have to decide, do I replay the 4x6 on the next turn, or do I hold him as Dawn? And if they hold him and pitch him as a counter, then it's money because you removed an attack off their board, which is huge for the Whitebeard matchup. So I really like this card. And you can get rid of Borsalino with it. Last card in the deck. No one should be surprised. Love Mellow. 2 cost 4k counter, and then draw 1 card. And if you have 3 or less cards in your hand, it's fantastic. Some people run 4 of this. Some people run 2. Some people don't run them at all. Personal flavor. I am testing out the current ratio of the 2-1-2 with my event cards. I love rules of 2 with my event cards, so usually if I run like 3 different kinds, I go 2-2-2. But I think with the versatility the deck now has and the tempo of the game, I didn't want to get too clogged down. Honestly, what I might end up doing, if I feel the Gum Gum Reigns really establish some core value, I may even end up cutting a couple cards, maybe the 2 Love Mellows for the Gum Gum Reigns, for like 2 more. And I don't know, maybe I'll put in a 4th Kuma and a 3rd Pacifista instead, just because like I don't mind if I don't have the Kuma established and I have a Pacifista in hand, I don't mind pitching that for a Gum Gum Reign. Because that 3k counter for no Dawn is huge. Because if you play your big cards, you're vulnerable in this deck, and there isn't a good answer. It's like on 9, if you're on 10 Dawn, your play for that turn is swing with what's on board, swing with leader, play 9-drop Mihawk, play 1-drop Law, and pass. That is your turn. It is the most readable play in almost all of One Piece if you're a blue player on 10 Dawn. But anyways, guys. I'm going to be uploading a shorter version of this video to TikTok, so keep your eyes open for that. Or if you're coming from TikTok, thanks for checking out this longer form video of it. I'll be doing some live gameplay of this deck and other versions of Doflamingo and even some other decks coming up here pretty soon. So make sure you have the notifications turned on. Thank you so much for checking this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you on the next one. This has been the Lord Axe. Thank you so much for watching.